we're excited that you guys have joined us. My name is Aaron. I'm CEO of O'Neill Software. I'm founder of Annex.com. And this is really more of a vision casting experience than it is really a showcase of solutions. And it's really something where when I got into O'Neill Software, I started looking at what problems to solve, what can we do that will truly be innovative. And so I came in 4 years ago. It was 3 days into the COVID work from home orders. And I come into the office as a new CEO, and there's 1 or 2 guys there, and I was told that we do have employees, even though everyone's at home. And I just started having conversations with people. And after a couple of months, I sat down with my now COO, Alan, and we said, okay, here's our 4-year plan. And we said, we're going to do this. And at the end of the 4 years, we're going to bring out Annex.com. Annex.com is the world's first cloud platform for offsite document management. So Annex.com allows you to go purchase your records management storage anywhere in the world. It's an e-commerce option, and then you can log in and start managing your information. So instead of going through a sales cycle with a large record center company, you actually have all the information needed to make your purchasing decisions and start managing your records. So Annex.com, we don't own warehouses, we do the software. And that's what sets us apart. With Annex.com, I started realizing, now that we have this foundation, what other problems can we start solving? And so when I get in, I start having conversations with people and start looking at, okay, what are the needs? And that's really why we're here as a company, is we're looking for what challenges should we be taking on? How can we help you solve problems? And getting companies to start thinking 5, 10, 10,000 years down the road. With Annex.com, our tagline is organizational bliss. It's the joy of being organized. So when I started reaching out to other thought leaders, Kurt was one of them. And Kurt's an incredible, innovative guy who's done a lot in the industry. And I was able to kind of pitch to him, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. And so it was really encouraging when Kurt caught the vision. And that's going to be one of my questions towards the end in the panel is what is it about this product that you said, yeah, it's a great fit for Gimmal? And then Wanne is also a guy who's innovative, and he's out there solving problems. And I think information management is something where we all see how complex the industry is. There's a lot of problems to be solved, but it's kind of where do you start and how do you start moving the pieces together to truly solve a company's problems. So with this session, what I really want to pitch is I believe 5, 10 years down the road, we can be solving some of the biggest problems in information management, but we have to start getting people to work together now and make decision processes now. And I say, if we want to design the future of information management, right, which is right there, that's what you guys signed up for, design the future of information management, we have to start looking at who are the future information managers. What are their expectations for technology? What are their expectations for acquiring technology and making decisions? We're all, as solutions providers, building products that we don't use. And a lot of you guys are building policies and processes that aren't designed specifically for your use, but for your employees' uses. And so I want to get the focus and the conversation on our consumer, whether you're making policies or you're building products, is Gen Z. We should be building products that's focused on the kids coming out of college into the office. And what are their expectations for technology, and what are their expectations for processes? And if we start thinking 5, 10 years down the road and start making decisions now, then we're actually going to be creating an infrastructure that is ready when AI is ready. As part of being a technology leader, my CEO and I have started going out to other conferences in technology. So we got an invite to the Wall Street Journal Tech Live conference, which is a pretty exclusive conference. I had to kind of elbow my way in a little bit. I've never been to a conference like that where you've got Sam Altman's there, Arnold Schwarzenegger's there, John Legend's there. I still don't understand why, and he wouldn't take a picture with me, so I was disappointing to my wife. But when you start getting into those environments and start talking about what the technology can do, there's what the technology can do right now, but even Sam Altman's there talking about AI is going to be really useful 5, 10 years down the road. Right now, AI is great for increasing your marketing and helping prompt you with writing documents, but for the solutions that we need as information managers, we still have 5 or 10 years before the technology will be there. So what we're trying to do is say, let's create an architecture and a vision for the industry that when AI is there, your companies are there. Also, I really like sessions that are interactive, so please interrupt me, and please ask questions or raise your hands. Are any of you introverts? Yes, everybody, me too. I never raise my hand. I'm like, I have a great question, not gonna do it, not gonna do it, okay? So, especially at the end, okay, we've put together we've left about 10 or more minutes in the end for some panel and some Q&A. And so the more you guys ask questions, the more we're all gonna get out of this session. Cool. So thriving in an era of rapid change. Anyone feel like information management is like jumping onto a moving train? That's what I'm hearing in these sessions, is I'm hearing you've got technology is changing and the formats are changing. You've got your company needs are changing, right? You've got all of these different elements. How do you bring it together to start saying, we're gonna slowly take down the cylinders so that you can start managing your data more efficiently, right? So Annex.com, what we do is we built Annex.com on top of O'Neill software. Anyone familiar with O'Neill software? Okay, so some people have been by a booth, all right. O'Neill software is the global leader in record center software. We have customers in over 100 countries who are running corporate, government, private record centers, large warehouses full of boxes of documents. We have customers anywhere from a few thousand boxes managing on our software up to 100 million boxes managing on our software in a single database. When you get into countries like India, where labor is much cheaper, they will barcode down to the piece of paper, and they're tracking and managing documents at that level. Our software is able to do that with hundreds of employees checking out documents constantly without the software crashing or lagging. And so when you have that foundation of saying, if you're going to build one place to manage and organize your data, right? That's really the goal with Annex, is how do you create one place for the world to organize and manage all of their information? You have to start with the bedrock of a corporation's data. That's your physical copy. So we started with the bedrock, and then we're reaching out to partners like Gimmal and FilersKeepers to start building out this ecosystem. So in a lot of ways, creating this ecosystem with Annex allows flexibility for your organization over time. One of the things that I actually had that was the most encouraging for me as an entrepreneur and a CEO is when I was pitching this to Kurt, and Kurt goes, wait, Aaron, this is real innovation. This is actually a change for how you organize data, is you can actually now organize data based upon all of our software customers instead of sticking with a particular franchise. So Annex is e-commerce front end, it's cross-database. You can now manage all of your data across our cloud customers, but also we provide a single invoice. So if you're storing in Hong Kong, Beijing, and Ohio, we're going to be able to have a single management tool for all that physical data. And then we're looking at how do we connect that into other software products. Who is Gen Z? Anyone want to throw out there? Describe Gen Z.
It's
Huh?
25.
25? Okay. How do you characterize Gen Z? Right now there's someone who's pretty much 18 to 25 years old, right in that zone. Okay. These are people who are the first digital native generation. Okay, the first digital native generation. They grew up with cell phones. I still remember when my sister got a cell phone and I thought, that is completely unpractical. Why would you pay $50 a month to have a phone in your pocket? I'm like, you're throwing away money, and like, I'll make the phone call later. It took me years before my parents bought me a cell phone because I was in college and they wanted to talk to me every so often or something. You know, I had to be sold on getting a cell phone. Gen Z, they grew up with cell phones. One of the things that I think is phenomenal about Gen Z is when they disconnect, there's an actual app that helps them disconnect through their phone. All right, it's amazing. When I want to disconnect, I have an off button. I turn off my phone, right? When they disconnect, they use their phone. That's how closely tied to their technology they are. It's really a part of them. I remember the first time I walked into a boardroom to have a meeting with a CEO, his entire staff, about 8 employees were Gen Z. He's talking, giving a presentation. They're all staring at their phone. And I was so insulted. I was like, how are you disrespecting your CEO like this? And then I realized, I'm an old man. They're all working. They're all working on their phones. They're listening to him. They're multitasking. But they're all working on their phones. I now do more work on my phone than on my laptop. I'm traveling, or even when I'm in the office or in a meeting, I'm constantly working on my phone. That's why I have the just shy of an iPad, version of the iPhone. It's because Gen Z expects to be connected all the time. They expect to have all the data to make decisions all the time. And so when I go out and I talk to other service providers, I'm telling them, I'm saying, we should really be looking at how can we make our products to where they're mobile first. And that's where we as O'Neill, we and Annex have a mobile first philosophy in how a customer expects to interact with their data. So Gen Z is also 55% of Gen Z will use a food delivery app every month. 55%. They will pay $40 to have a burrito delivered to them. Okay? Gen Z is also, it's not just an age bracket. It's not just 18 to 25. It's actually anyone who uses technology like Gen Z, right? Any of you on, well, let's ask, what are some of your favorite apps? Who's got a favorite app?
TikTok.
TikTok, okay. Waze, okay. Yeah. What are some other favorite apps? DoorDash, all right, nice. Huh? Pinterest, I love Pinterest. Yeah. So the world is turning more app-based, and it's turning more towards using your phone, all information, all the time on your device. If you're someone who is using these apps, you're actually starting to self-identify as Gen Z, right? It's really, Gen Z is not an age bracket, it's actually how you interact with technology. So there's a little bit about Gen Z. Again, I'm ahead of my apps, my slides, I apologize. But Gen Z is born 1997 through 2012, so 12-year-olds to 27, corrected by my apps, so sorry guys. Let's see. Extremely online, digital native, shrewd consumers. They expect to have all the information to make decisions at all times. Now, if you follow Amazon did something last year. I think they spent something like $500 million to build out their B2B e-commerce marketplace. And they're saying the way that people purchase and manage in their personal life is the way that they expect to do that once they're in the corporate office. And they're expecting more people, once they're in the office, to start managing through e-commerce and through Amazon. And so that's where they're taking their product. Here's a great example of a product box that has gone towards mobile first, and being able to manage even information on the mobile device. Something interesting with that is that Gen Z is no longer impressed if you're an environmentally friendly organization. They just expect that you're already doing that. They just expect that you understand that the way that your corporation uses resource affects the environment. More tools are coming out where it's collaborative space online. Does anyone have the Apple Vision Pro? I'm the only one. Everyone else returned yours? I'm pretty sure everyone else in the entire world who bought one returned it within 2 weeks and got their money back. I'm like the lone guy. But when the Vision Pro came out a few months ago, it was really good for watching movies. And so you could actually sit on the moon and throw up Star Wars or Star Trek, and you're like, oh, this is great watching a movie. The problem is that you're watching a movie alone. You know, and it's also very hard to eat popcorn and drink soda because you have this goggle on, right? 2 weeks ago, they released a new update on the Vision Pro where it's now a collaborative space, where if you're wearing goggles, it's really like you're standing next to the person and you can throw up a design or a document in front of you. Gen Z is going to go full into VR. Sorry to break your guys' heart. You're going to see people with goggles on their face in like, it's gonna happen 5-10 years from now. VR is also something where I was totally against working from home. I'm still, like, we're collaborating, so I have employees in the office. We have a in-office philosophy. But it was using the Vision Pro, I started realizing it's going to change how your organization manages data. It's going to change how you guys are collaborative and who you can be collaborative with. And so a lot of technology, even though Vision Pro came out version 1, okay, and it wasn't terribly useful, version 2, it's now a collaborative space, and it has that feature functionality that allows it to actually be a useful device. A lot with technology, whether it's AI or VR, what I learned at the Wall Street Journal conference is that they're really trying to get investors invested in this technology because they know that once they get that capital, 5-10 years out, it'll be a useful product. So same thing with products like Annex. What we're building right now is we're really introducing a vision for the industry, and we're introducing concepts that are going to be useful a few years down the road. But that's why it's INFONEXT, is because we're here looking at what's the future of information management. How do we solve these problems before AI eliminates our jobs, right? Starting with the CEO, right? Isn't that what Sam Altman says? This is how Annex works. Annex is the world's first cloud platform for offsite document management. So you've got independent record centers on the bottom. You have the cross-database management tool. And then you have an e-commerce front end. So O'Neill is actually the innovators who brought software into the record center industry over 43 years ago. Our founder said, I'm going to put a barcode on the box, a barcode on the rack, you scan it in, and that's how we're going to manage this business. So we're built on top of the industry's leading software, best-of-breed software, and we're also the only supplier in the industry who has built a cloud product. No one in records management has rebuilt their product and is running a cloud product like we are. So it's the latest technology, and it's an infrastructure that we believe is going to be flexible for your organization over time. All right, now I get to hand it off. All right, so let's give Kurt a round of applause.
Thanks, Aaron. So what I find fascinating in talking with these guys and being part of the conversation here at this conference is how everything is evolving and tying together, and the integration of the systems and processes. So as Aaron was talking and he mentioned the Grubhub, the food delivery service, I immediately thought of my oldest son who's down in Miami, and he uses this all the time. And I can't wrap my head around it. I've never used it. I understand how it works. I don't understand the economics of it. How am I going to pay? Like Aaron said, $40 to get a burrito, and I guarantee he's done that. He probably does it twice a week. But he has a different concept of his time and how to leverage technology, where I look at it and I go, well, I know I could drive down there, I can get the food, why am I going to pay this money? So to me, I don't understand the concept there. But when I came here, I actually was in between conferences, and so rather than fly all the way back to Boston, where I'm located, I went to visit my parents in LA. And so I rented a car, and they are now, they're older, as you can imagine, and my dad is having health issues. So he had kidney stones. He went to the hospital for 3 days. They have a 2-story house, which is important to the story. And when they released him without figuring out, he actually had this surgery, it's been 6 weeks yesterday, so he's in recovery. They sent him home, said, you'll have to schedule these appointments. He goes up the stairs. He started going up the stairs. He fell backwards. And broke his ribs, hit his head, all kinds of bad things. So I get a call, Dad's in the emergency room, intensive care, all these things. And suddenly, me and my sister are trying to figure out, how do we deal with this? And now, because I'm in Boston, they're in LA, she's 3 hours away, we have to figure out, how do we get food to them? How do we get them to their doctor's appointments? They've never used Uber. So suddenly, the technology, and I'm, having my kids, I'm like, okay, teach them Uber. How do you use the food delivery service so they can get groceries? But all this technology is there. We got them the Apple Watch. So, he can actually, hey, he knows how to use the phone off his watch. But all these things become really relevant, and the interconnectivity of this becomes really vital. So I drove here, and I was very excited because I rented from National for the first time, and I have a credit card, and I got a status, and like, hey, just pick out anything on the lot. So I got this brand new Grand Cherokee Eco version. And I come in and I put my phone in, and the directions come up because I use my phone to send me everywhere. My music is there, my podcast. So I drive out here, but my battery's dead because I didn't have to plug it in, so my phone wasn't charging. So I'm like, okay, well, it's very interconnected, but I missed the gap here. So in our fields, the opportunity to create the unified platform and connect our solutions, this is what we're working towards. And we've always been a very fragmented industry. It's kind of the nature of, we have practitioners, we look at as customers, we're trying to solve their problems. We have different solution providers, different systems that we can use. Conferences like this, where we're interacting and we're solving that, and the way that we're working together, because we're at Gimmal, we apply the policy. So we're software to apply the policy to your records. Wanne is developing the rules and helping you develop those policies. We're attaching them to the records. We're the system of record. Then we attach to O'Neill, to their system. So it all connects. We live in an ecosystem. We're all trying to figure out M365. We're all on the same cloud choices in terms of platforms. Which one are we going to use in our environment? But we're very early in the stage of interoperability and how we can actually use and leverage these. The exciting part of this conference is you guys represent the use cases, having conversations with all of you, how we take this technology, what are we trying to build to make it easier and to connect it. And then we layer on top the policy, the privacy, and this focus on data minimization, where we came from a world where it was data maximization, more data, the better. How do we classify? How do we manage? So it's now flipping, I think, in a very positive way, because it's curation of that data. We're not just custodians. Let's receive the information, let's store, let's provide access to it when people need it. But we have this responsibility to curate, and we're no longer just trying to accumulate the information. And the focus, as I've seen in these conferences over the years, where it used to be about retrieval, access, it's now about the way to manage that information and to manage it through its life cycle, but focusing on how we destroy and we keep the right amount of information. As part of that, as we focus on the automation of this business process, the information life cycle, we have technology, we have capabilities where we can now apply metrics and instrumentation to that life cycle and the data. And I'm speaking tomorrow at the very end of the conference, so hopefully people are still going to be around, about the economics of records and information management and managing what we measure. And so the ability to talk about your records program in the context of what it is doing, what are the outcomes, how are you achieving these goals, becomes really important. And so as we integrate these platforms, we look at the life cycle, and now we can track, because of the instrumentation, what's actually happening. How many things do we have eligible for destruction? How many things are on hold? And you can get more and more granular and apply it to your particular business. You can make the information useful. And that's where we get to AI. And over the last year, going to conferences where it's, is this the latest buzzword? We talk about, GDPR, that's the new shiny object. And there's always some term that everyone is throwing into their speeches. It was before, it was Bitcoin and blockchain. And, we're like, okay, we need to be an expert in that. This really has evolved in real time. I just was listening to a podcast that I talk a little bit on my other presentation about with Bill Gates called Unconfuse Me. And they were talking about climate change and all the topics that he focused a lot on. And the person he was interviewing, he always says, what questions do you have for me? And they said, well, what did you get wrong? And he certainly, he's gotten a lot of things right. He was, the phone, he was late to the internet and things. He's like, I've gotten AI wrong. I didn't realize how fast this was coming. And the ways that we can use that. And I mean, this is happening in real time. So he says, I missed it. He's like, hey, a year ago, I thought it was further out. He's like, and now all the things I thought were going to take 5 years are already here. And I think we're seeing that. You can see it from conference to conference where we're talking about it, and we're getting deeper and deeper into it. So it's very real, and it's very relevant to all of these points where if we can connect these things, we can curate our data, we can make it accessible. The tools and the capability that it unlocks are really remarkable. And Wanne, when he talked the other day, and he's like, unstructured data, we're going to solve that. And I'm like, that's crazy talk. It's crazy talk. These young guys, they think, great energy, we're going to do it. And I start thinking about it, oh my gosh, he is right. When we look at the way that we can point these tools at problems we've had. And last year, I was at a government conference in DC, and there they are speaking about this. And like, we have so much data. You look at, the IRS and these departments, so much data. There's no way that we can classify it without leveraging auto classification. And they have like the capstone, like you have to really look at the risk of the information and focus on certain things because you can't get your arms around everything. And so that was eye-opening where they're like, there's too much information, it's impossible, we're gonna have to throw technology at this. And now you look at AI and it's, you look at your tax returns, you're like, okay, well, if I just say this, they audit, whatever, 3%. Now they can go back. I did this because I'm now looking at retirement. And you can go onto the government website for Social Security, and they will tell you how much you're going to get. I'm like, okay, it's an estimate. How do they know? And then I click on a button, and it shows all of my tax returns for my whole life. They have all of my data. They know precisely to the dollar what I'll be able to get because they have all the information. It's the master source. So it's really remarkable. So what if they take all this data, it's electronic, and they can go through and they can use AI, and suddenly they don't need a team, an army of people to go through the tax returns. It's not overwhelming. They can actually look, they can apply analytics and so forth. Do we want them to do that? I don't know, worries me a little bit. But the capability is suddenly there, and it's a dramatic game changer. So let me turn it over to Wanne and.
All right. I'll try to stand here, so warn me if I fall off the podium. All right, so I'm Wanne Pemmelaar. I'm the co-founder, CEO for FilersKeepers, and for those of you who don't know what we do, we read all the laws in the world and we take from their rules that tell companies how long they should store their records and data. And then we help apply those rules to the records and data of our customers, first and foremost by building retention schedules. And we have a dashboard where you can quickly build a retention schedule. We can keep it up to date. So if the law changes, we can send you a ping. That can be, hey, this law has gone up from 3 to 4 years. We can also tell you when a newer, better law comes out. And so hopefully, you can keep your retention schedule live and active. You don't have to do a one-off exercise every few years. And more the conversation is about how do we make this real within our systems. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about. So I showed this slide yesterday. I'm going to promise for those of you who were there during my session, this will be slightly different. But this is the promise of AI. Everybody's on it. It's the new gold. We don't know why, but it is, right? I just want you to know that AI comes with a whole lot of responsibility. And ever since in 2016, the GDPR got voted into law, I wake up every single day with how do we ensure that you're really compliant with privacy laws. Now with the new add-on of AI, the EU AI Act, and whatever is coming, in China, Brazil, US. Yes, you're gonna follow suit for very sure. We need to make this real. And that's, I think, very often when you look at your own organization, are you really compliant? Are you shoving paper? Are you just filling in your records of processing activities and then that's it? Tick the box exercises. But how do you make sure that you're really compliant with all those rules and principles? That's the real challenge. I focus on retention, and it's that one little checkbox usually that is unchecked, in any kind of like privacy to-do list, basically. We notice that your schedule is a source of sorrow, I guess, because it's never up to date. Your business changes and they add a few countries and then they divest and then you're going to do something new. We got the topic of AI. I mentioned yesterday, 25 new retention periods that are introduced there in the EU. Yeah, so you may need to comply with that. So we set out with the kind of like moonshot ambition of let's solve records retention once and for all. You can say that of any topic, but I guess when I say it to you, you kind of understand what I mean, right? There's a lot of things coming your way. You're trained in physical records, yeah? Now everything becomes digital. Now people are asking you for your opinion about unstructured systems, about structured systems, and you need to kind of update your skill set. And now there is AI, and I gave you career advice yesterday. I said, well, hop on that bandwagon, you'll be the boss. You at one point, the only battle you have to fight is, whether the chief privacy officer is going to report into you or, to the board. So what we see are the three issues from our perspective when it comes to retention schedules is the first problem is not knowing the law. Yeah, there are many laws. There we scrape all the government portals in the world, so we know how many laws there are. But let me tell you this, there are 300 and plus 1,000 retention periods in our database. I reckon that in total there are about 500 to 600,000 rules in the world on retention. Yeah, we got the most important ones covered, don't worry. So the second problem arises is not knowing how to choose, because it can get very overwhelming. One country tells you keep this maximum 5 years, the next one says keep this minimum 50 years. So what do you do with that? Yeah, you have to make choices. You can't comply with every single law. And then when you've made your choices, how do you then implement that in a super complex records and IT landscape with all of the challenges that you have there? So we started to put the user central, yeah? It might surprise you, but I have never seen the tools of our competitors. Never, yeah? I don't care about it. I'm not gonna do it. Sometimes someone says, oh, this is, Iron Mountain does this or something. I'm like, okay, fine. I'll listen to you, but I'll never look at it. What we did is we actually created personas, yeah? We created personas, the project manager, the records manager, they have names, Patricia, the project manager, and Riley, the records manager, and Harry, the head of compliance. And so, we figured that there in an organization, there's not one stakeholder, there's not one persona. There are hundreds, so yeah, and we boiled it down to kind of like 10 archetypical, and that's how we built the whole company, the whole product. So we really believe in user empathy, yeah? So if you are an existing customer and you have an opinion about our product, we want to hear from you, yeah? And we started by reading all the laws in the world, because we figured that we can't be, useful to any of our users if we don't read all the laws. And now we kind of have all the laws. As I told you that maybe there are a few 100,000 more, but let's say we got the most important. We read all the laws at national level. So that's 200 plus countries. And we thought at one point, yeah, but that's a lot of rules and you need to make those choices. So how do you do that? So we said, what if it would be as simple as you just say, I'm in these jurisdictions, I am in these industries, and we just build the retention schedule for you. Or if you have an existing retention schedule, what if we would just upload it and we would just populate all the laws in all the jurisdictions you're in, yeah? And we would not just give you the rule that we think is most applicable. We'll give you 5 options for every single record type, for every single jurisdiction. And if you disagree with us, you can research in our entire database. And if you disagree with all the rules in the world, you create your own. Yeah? That's basically. So we want to put you first, and then we can simplify that, because what comes out is a very big retention schedule, really nice for the people in this room, but your business doesn't care about that. Yeah? They're like, I'm in Argentina, I'm in HR, I just need my rules. So okay, let's simplify that. Yeah? Let's make a screen where I say, I am located in Argentina, and then let me click on I'm from HR, and I can see the rules that I need to know. Yeah? Let's simplify that view. And it's all connected. So if you make a change somewhere, if the law has changed and you accept it, you're in control, that immediately gets reflected here. Yeah? Want to connect to your privacy statement. What does your privacy statement say? Well, we keep this no longer than necessary in accordance with the law. That's no longer a viable option. Yeah? We see enforcement by the FTC and also in Europe. So you need to change that. But then every time you make a change to your schedule, do you want to go back to your privacy statement? No, you want to be able to push that into your privacy statement. Yeah? That should be connected. But the most important thing that we realized is that even though if we build a great retention scheduling product, we have not solved retention. Yeah? And we cannot do it alone. And that's why I'm so happy that I'm standing here with these very impressive 2 gentlemen on stage, because we need to build that ecosystem. We need to make sure that we connect that retention schedule to the records management tools, to the data governance tools, to the privacy tools, heck, to your most important tools, Microsoft, SAP, Oracle, Workday, yeah? That's where we need to go. We have some real issues there, yeah? Workday, you can't automate the purge. You can do a lot of data discovery, but you can't automate the purge. You need to do that manually. So we're trying to convince them. And if you are a customer, help us convince them. Help us convince all of the big tool providers, yeah? Because you have way more leverage than this tiny speck of a company that we are, basically, yeah? Because the world is gonna be more integrated, yeah? It's not just a fancy story about, some companies that want to collaborate to kind of glue everything together and, and then we kind of solve an imaginary issue. No, this is what the industry is going to ask of you, that data governance works together with records management, works together with security, privacy, and maybe even AI compliance, yeah? That's your future. That's what you're building now. Maybe some of you have already realized that. Then you're really ahead of the pack, by the way. So good for you. But this is where this is going. So what do? Yeah, we build connectors. Yeah. So we have launched a connector with Microsoft. But that's not enough, because we feel like we should actually have the connector with Microsoft and then build a whole community around it to actually help you set that up, with knowledge, training, consultancy, whatever it is. We can't do this alone, yeah? What's next for us? ServiceNow, Highland OnBase, OneTrust, Annex, right? So that's it. I want to leave it there.
All right, that's great, that's great, all right. All right, cool. So I think if there's one thing to take away from this session, we've got about 10 minutes for Q&A and discussion, but if there's one thing to take away from this discussion, it's we're 3 different technology companies that do 3 different things, and as technology companies, what we're seeing is the technology is soon going to be here to solve some problems, some real problems in information management. What we're saying is you need the architecture to do it. and you need an architecture that's flexible over the life of your organization. And so that's what we're out there is saying we should really, as a community, be honing in on that concept, that idea of organizational bliss. We believe companies are happiest when your data is organized and when you're secure. Does anyone have any questions?
After your tools or systems talk to each other, how do you build a retention schedule for a company that is starting from the scratch? If you are not on site to do the inventory and then, but what I'm hearing is you are going to build a generic retention schedule. Am I right? From your tool, which might not reflect what the organization has in particular. So how would you resolve that problem?
So I think it starts by, we have the big bucket approach, of course, and we have templates where you can literally say, I'm in this industry, and then we will say, okay, we think being in this industry that, let's say you're an accountant, you'll probably have client files and a quality control system. And, so there are definitely some themes that are very universal. And then you can completely customize that to your liking, so you would have to talk to your business. But the buckets are big enough to kind of make that, to capture everything. Then the next step is mapping, right? Because, O'Neill will have the box inventory, Gimmal will have a completely different taxonomy probably that every customer makes. So that's where the ultimate, the final step lies in, We're building software there, but we're also challenging our partners to also think along. But we can kind of break that down with AI, that you can literally say, what are candidate records? Oh, it's a resume. What are the discovery tags within a resume that if you would hit those tags, you would know it's a resume, not an email about a resume, And maybe you also want to get the email about the resume, and then you can classify that at a very granular level, and then you have the proper mapping. And then it's about all the tiny little interoperability things that we're running into, You will need a lot of data lineage to understand if someone has actually terminated their employment, right? Because maybe the record needs to be gone 5 years after employment terminates. So we need that from our partners. We need that context. And those are I think, two main challenges here. And AI is going to help us with that.
And if I can add to that, because I think it's a fascinating question, Joe. One of the fundamentals of records and information management, information governance, is the retention schedule, the rules, which are now changing rapidly, and AI is going to introduce all these new rules, so everyone has to make these updates. So if we have the hooks into the systems, and if you think about having all these disparate systems that now have the responsibility to apply the retention. So, we're going to have M365 SharePoint in that environment. It's going to have its way that it applies it. You mentioned SAP, our system. We have 3 different systems that apply retention: physical records, electronic records. We do data analytics and discovery. They all touch upon retention. So we take the file plan, and it's sort of a data mapping exercise. There's a right way to have a file plan, and now how do you apply it into all those different systems? So having the connectors so that it's automated, we don't have to each go in and update the rules and figure out how to apply it in our system and do this manually. That's the friction that exists in our industry, and how we're working to try and reduce that so we can focus on the bigger challenges that we have.
And maybe one more thing. I think it's never going to be effortless, right? So if you have, maybe you need to pop a few lids, right? Maybe you need to reach out to the people and give you the feedback. So it is. We can solve a whole lot, using data discovery and all kinds of nice classifications. But there will be work because you know your business best. Eventually,
Regardless of what you produce, there still has to be human intervention.
Absolutely.
Because we can't just rely on that. Because a record might be described in, even though the same industry, my organization might describe it totally different from what my competitor describes it. So if your retention schedule at the end of the day describe or inventory the name differently, at the end of the day, it might not be approved because we still have to do the, okay.
I was hearing a speaker talk on AI last year, and he asked the question. He said, "Have you used ChatGPT? Were your results correct? Were they good results, or were they incorrect results? Who's had great results? Who's had incorrect results? Right? And so that tells you everything you need to know about your position in light of AI. Is you're still the point of truth. You're still the one looking at this and saying, okay, was ChatGPT correct or was it incorrect? I joke that ChatGPT is like the new version of Wikipedia. It's just a new way of its data entered, but you still need the manager who says, yes, this was a correct decision, this was not a correct decision. And I believe more and more as AI comes in, yeah, you still need that human to be able to audit the results. Yeah.
So you raised an excellent point. I've had, this is going to sound controversial, but so I apologize from now. But it's really been a thorn on my side. The use of the term artificial intelligence for all these software tools that are basically their algorithm. When I think of AI, I think of, back in the 80s when we thought, the Terminator 2 was going to come, and he's going to be, it's just AI depiction, right? Because it's a learning mechanism. It is intelligence that is actually, so there's learning behind it. There's a creation behind it. ChatGPT is not intelligent. ChatGPT is Wikipedia, exactly as you said. It is the modern day Wikipedia. Excuse the term, it is throwing up basically whatever information it gathered, from somewhere else, but it's not creating its own synopsis. It's not creating its own, it's not intelligent.
Right. I think that's an important point, and I think it was in that same Bill Gates podcast. He used the term simulated intelligence.
Yeah.
So it's not really. And artificial makes it seem a little more sci-fi, but it's emulating intelligence, but it is programmatic, it's organizing, and it's predictive response. So it takes all the data and says, okay, what will the next word be? What will the next thing be? It organizes information. If the information is good, then it does a great job of structuring it. But it doesn't really know what's right or wrong. So it has some really good use cases, but I think that's right. We can't look at it as intelligence. It's just simulating.
Yeah. And there's the technology, and then there's how people interact with it and use it, right? So my VP of development, he always says, well, we can build anything with software, right? You can build it, but then how do people interact with it? How do people use it? Your marketing, all of that, your user interface, that all very much matters. One of the key differences in the generational changes that's happening right now is I heard a dad say, his son said, hey dad, have you seen this thing? And his dad goes, oh, well, this is how it works. It goes A, B, C, and that's how it works. The son automatically, 13-year-old son, pulls the phone out of his pocket, types into Google, and goes, look dad, you're correct. Where's the point of truth? It's Google, it's not his father. And that is the generational change that's going to happen with AI. Is right now we see this, but the next generation coming in, AI is going to become a point of truth. And that's where I think the danger that some of these people are saying is going to come in. It's not so much the technology is the same technology we're interacting with, but the human and what our expectations for the technology is changing, and how we allow it to make decisions will change. And I think that's the real thing that we need to be aware of, and that we need to be watching for.
And I think if you look at ChatGPT, it kind of tends to deteriorate over time. I don't know if you've noticed that. It just gets worse. And that's because it's trained by the masses. And the masses are schizophrenic, moronic, sorry, with all due respect, but don't quote me on that. So what happens then is you can literally train the algorithm to say 1 + 1 is 5, and it will just say that with confidence. So I sometimes, when I'm social media, I don't know what to believe anymore. I don't know how that's for you, but anyhow. So it is already difficult to discern the truth. I will never say that we are really good at AI. We have algorithms and logic, that's what I say. But we are working on the models now. I believe that specialized AI is where you want to go. You need AI. You need to train your own. That's your recipe for success, yeah? So if it's records management that you want to resolve, yeah, train your own model with your way of your language, your scope, yeah?
Yeah, and to echo that, you know, one of the first jobs I had in college, I worked for a guy remodeling an old hotel bed and breakfast, and he'd continuously go, Aaron, you don't get what you expect, you get what you inspect. And that's key with AI, is you don't get what you expect, but you need to be able to expect, you know, to inspect it and to audit it. And so, you know, there's some of these ideas are what we bring into development path is okay, how do you give better tools to inspect this, that this is correct?
And I will say this, and I won't make friends with this, so I apologize. I don't think that ChatGPT is compliant now with the new AI Act, right? There is no transparency. You know, yeah, it sometimes gives some extra sentences on the bottom of, you know, disclaimer. But there is no, you can't check for false positive, false negatives, right? And that's what you need to be really aware. And we're going to have to see, this is going to be very interesting, how social media are going to deal with this, right? I see laws are coming up on misinformation, but I think the first step is transparency. Like, yeah.
Absolutely. I think transparency creates trust. And as technology changes, you have to have that trust between the consumer and the technology. You know, I can say I came into O'Neill 4 years ago, and just through conversations, I said, okay, what challenge can we take on that I feel like no one else can build? What can we build? What value do we bring to the information management community? And so after a few months, we came up with, okay, we're going to build Annex. It's going to take us 4 years to get there if we hustle. And we didn't even have a name for it, but this was the development path. And then we kind of worked things out and said Annex. About 2 years into that journey, I realized I work with a lot of shredding companies, and I said, there's a big problem with secure destruction. And so I went out and I found some engineers, and we built a Bluetooth lock. You can come to our booth and see a Bluetooth lock that really is a way of bringing an extra level of security into the secure disposal industry. Why are we here as Annex? We're here because we're looking for what challenges to take on. And I'm looking for those conversations as far as saying, how do we continue to solve your problems, and how do we continue to give you more tools? So as your platinum sponsor, I'm probably can confidently say I'm the only platinum sponsor to ever bring my VP of development and my product manager. And we have the Discovery Lounge. So what we're doing over there is we're talking to you guys and saying, what are your current tools you're using? As service providers, how do we help you? Right? How do we help you bring together? How do we build solutions that are going to be viable for your organization? A few weeks ago, about a month ago, I was at a conference and I met a guy, Ross. And Ross is the founder of Spiegelworld. Anyone know what Spiegelworld is? It's the largest circus in the world. He's in his 60s. Best conversation I've had in a long time when you talk to a founder of a circus. And he also has restaurants in Vegas. He's come to my restaurant. He bought a town in California. You know, he's just phenomenal guy. And so we were talking about leading staff. And he said, I ask in my staff meetings 3 questions. And he says, and I make my staff answer it. And I thought these questions were so inspirational. Where are we going to be in 5 years? No circus has ever outlived its founder. And he says, where are we going to be in 10 years? You know, because he wants his company to outlive him. And he says, where are we going to be in 10,000 years? And he says, I make my staff answer it and imagine and say, in 10,000 years, we're going to be doing circus on the Mars. What are we doing about the gravity? How are we getting the elephants up there? Who's got the food, right? And he says, imagine your organization 5, 10, 10,000 years out. And as information managers, as we create these processes, as we create tools, we really need to take time and say, where is our organization going to be in 5 years? What tools are we going to be using? Where are we going to be in 10 years? What are we going to be using? Where are we going to be in 10,000 years? Because the decisions that you make and that we make as service providers is creating that foundation for your organization. And so that's my encouragement. Come by our booth or come by the Discovery Lounge and let's just talk about information management. And thank you guys so much for your attention.